Hi everyone, this is Jack Skeen again. Today we're moving on in the Circle Blueprint system, a basic course, and we're going to cover Chapter 3. Just to review Chapter 2 for a minute, we talked about your circle. What is your circle and why it's important? We also talked about why it's important to expand your circle and the implications of doing so. Third, we talked about the 4 factors that are necessary to create an expansive circle. So in Lesson 3, we're going to take on the topic of mastering independence, the first of the 4 critical factors to have a robust and meaningful circle. The topics for Lesson 3 are what it means to be independent, reversing an old pattern, the 6 factors of independence, the skill of speaking your mind, and the skill of making your preferences important. Let's get started. I'd like to start by reading a poem to you. It's called The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles, mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough in a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones, but little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing that you could do, determined to save the only life that you could save. Mary Oliver's point is that you can spend so much of your life trying to fix the lives of others or becoming what they want you to be or do what they want you to do, and miss how important it is to take care of your own life, to save your own life, the only life you can really save. So independence is really about discovering and saving your life. So independence means being your unique self. You might recognize this picture as a picture of snowflakes. And what's true about snowflakes is each one is unique, each one is different, and each one is beautiful. The second picture is a pile of snow. Here you don't see the uniqueness of a snowflake at all, just a pile of snow. And I think this relates to people as well. That the truth about people is each person is unique, and to the extent they're unique, they're beautiful. But it's rare that people show their unique beauty to the world. Too often they try to fit in and become what other people want them to be, and so they look more like a pile of snow than like a unique snowflake. So independence is about discovering that uniqueness in you and making that important, not only to understand, but also to show, to demonstrate to the world around you. So, in order to grow in independence, there are things you need to shed. First are old scripts learned in childhood. Yeah, you probably grew up like I did. If you wanted dessert, you had to eat your peas. If you wanted good grades, you had to please the teacher. If you wanted friends, you had to wear what they wore and go where they go and do what they do. So we were taught how to conform to the expectations of others. And until we shed that, we'll never really have our independence. A second thing we need to shed is the standard plan. The standard plan is something we often don't think about, but we were taught even as little children. Get good grades so you can go to college. Go to college so you can get a good job. Get a good job so you can support a family. Get married, have some children. Buy a house with a yard. Put your kids through college. Retire and die. So you might be someplace in the standard plan, but you didn't think about, is this my plan? Is this what my life is about? Or am I just doing what everyone expected me to do? The third thing you need to shed are the expectations of family and friends. People like to think of you a certain way. They like to think of you as friendly or supportive or good-hearted or kind. However they like to think of you, it's easy to feel like you've got to live up to their expectations, even when that's not who you are. So it's important at some point to not let the expectations of family and friends determine or dictate who you're going to be in the world. Next are the mores of our society. The society has certain standards of respectability or belonging, and it puts pressure on people to behave a certain way and to not behave in certain ways. So you might hide some of your individuality, some of your uniqueness, some of your creativity, because you don't think it's socially acceptable to show. Another thing you might need to shed is the thought about being good. We like to think of ourselves as good, but sometimes being good becomes more important than being real. So we don't show some of our edges, some of our uniqueness, some of our needs, some of our wants, some of our demands, because we're caught in the service of wanting to look good, be thought of as good. And finally, many of us have been taught to please others in order to get what we want. So instead of being who we are, we're focused too much on the needs of others and trying to become what they want us to be. The things we need to learn are to notice and express your uniqueness. So independence has 6 sub-factors, and I'd like to review those with you briefly. First is crisis-prone behavior, creating situations that either do that. Independence has 6 sub-factors. I'd like to review them with you briefly. The first is crisis-prone behavior, creating situations that either do not have to exist or that do not actually exist in reality. So people who are highly crisis-prone are always creating non-existent situations, creating drama in their life. And drama is an excuse for not being who you are or not taking responsibility for your own life. Autonomy is the second independent factor. Autonomy is living free from comparison and relying healthily on self and others. So some people don't have much autonomy. They are too dependent. They're always comparing themselves to other people or expecting other people to do things for them that they could do for themselves. Autonomy is important to independence, so growing in your autonomy is a critical issue. Pleasing. That's adapting to the real or perceived needs of others in unhealthy ways. So many of us have been trained to please instead of being who we are. Pretentiousness, needing to appear in a light more favorable than one actually is. So pretentiousness is really pretending. It's dressing ourselves up, boasting, pretending to be who we're not. Reliance is the 5th factor in independence, and it's being controlled by someone or something else. So people give up their independence to addictions, or to bad habits, or to people who are bullies in their lives. And finally, personal commitment, which is about having goals, operationalizing them into actionable plans, and disciplining yourself to execute on those plans. So personal commitment is the ability to set goals for your life and actually move forward in those. Next, we're going to cover the skill of candor. You think about the ways we can show up in how we speak. At the bottom, or the lowest level, is lying. And the truth is we all probably lie sometimes. You answer the phone and it's a robocall and you say that you're not home when you really are on the phone. You lie to get out of difficult circumstances. And a higher level of candor skill is withholding. It's not lying, but you're not saying everything on your mind. We're encouraging you to actually speak your whole truth, to say whatever is on your mind all the time. Because in speaking your whole truth, you're showing who you really are. If you're lying or withholding, you're actually manipulating the world to create an outcome. It's almost as if you're frightened to experience life the way it is. So you're trying to make sure that people are pleased by telling them what they want to hear, not telling them what they don't want to hear. When you're speaking the whole truth, you're trusting that being yourself is your best play. And however life is supposed to go, it'll be fine. If in speaking your whole truth you lose a friendship, that friendship might not have been worth having. Being yourself is more important. The next skill is the skill of preferences. We get at this skill with a simple exercise. We just show you 2 ice cream cones and say chocolate or vanilla. What do you want? So interesting because it's hard for some people to just say chocolate or vanilla. They try to figure out what the right answer is. Or they want to justify their answer that chocolate is better for you or vanilla is healthier or more people like vanilla. But when you're good with your preferences, you just know what you like and you don't need to justify it. I pick vanilla. Why? Because it's my choice. There's nothing else to say. So the skill of preferences is about noticing your preferences, expressing your preferences, but not necessarily insisting on your preferences. So a friend might ask you, what would you like for dinner? And you naturally might say, well, I'll eat anything. But that's not your preference. If you pay attention, you might notice that you want Chinese food for dinner. But you might not be sure your friend wants Chinese food for dinner, so you might not want to say it. We're encouraging you to say, I noticed that I want Chinese food for dinner. But we don't necessarily have to have Chinese food. I just want to express my preference, what I want. Growing in candor and in your expressing your preferences are ways that you increase your independence. So the topics we covered in Lesson 3 are what it means to be independent, reversing an old pattern of becoming what other people want you to be, the 6 factors of independence, the skill of speaking your mind, and the skill of making your preferences important. I hope you gained some interesting new thoughts about independence that you can put into practice in your life. Are you ready for Lesson 4?